July test, folks. Argentina up against Scotland. Finally, we get to see Argentina play at home. And they're taking on a Scotland side who has had the wood over them recently. Last 5 games. And it is 5-0 to the Scots. Although that does date all the way back to 2014. You have to look back to 2011 to find an Argentinian win, and that was at the Rugby World Cup. So they've had a change in coach, the Argentinians. It's Michael Cheika's first squad, and we will have to see how this new-look Argentinian team goes. Obviously, the Scots have left some of their big guns at home to rest over the northern summer. So, it's going to be an interesting one for the Scots as well to test a little bit of that depth. We're going to go through these squads, some stats and predictions, and you guys can let me know your thoughts. I should say if you want Lions rugby gear, 70% off, summer sale, happy days. Get yourself some gear. On discount is usually the best time to do it, I find. But yeah, why not? Get yourself something for summer. Lineups. Argentina. Cheika has named us. I think it's kind of a predictable lineup, barring them a few big names missing. I mean, Thomas Lavanini has been a mainstay for the Argentinian pack in recent years. His name is noticeable in its absence. I didn't see anything about him being injured, but it maybe makes a little bit of sense with his discipline sometimes being a wee bit lacking that he doesn't play in the first game. It is sometimes a bit tricky to get information in English on Los Pumas, but I do try my best. I did see a press conference with Cheika. He speaks a basic level of Spanish, which I was impressed by. So some of the questions he was able to answer, and he was able to understand many of them posed to him in Spanish, which was quite encouraging if he's going to take over a team where Spanish is the first language. So, kind of better than I thought, but I guess he has been working with the Pumas for a while. Tetes, Chaparro, Montoya, and Cordella are the front row. Cordella is a bit of a reliable guy, well into his 30s. Montoya is legit one of the best hookers in the world in terms of his ability to get over the ball at the breakdown, get through 1 million tackles. And then Tetes Chaparro is also probably the most experienced loose head in the side. So that's going to be a big test for them at scrum time for sure, because the Pumas haven't had a really strong scrum for a wee while. It's gone from being kind of a weak part of their game to maybe just a little bit mediocre compared to way back in the day when it was an absolute strength. The second row is Petty and Alemano. Alemano's been in really good form in the Premiership, just his pure work rate, getting through his line-out work and getting through a bunch of tackles. And then Petty, my thoughts on him. He's one of the best defensive line-out operators in the world. He has been operating a wee bit in the back row in France for his club, but it's back to the more familiar second row for the Pumas. Juan Martin Gonzalez, Marcos Crema, and Pablo Matera are the back row. The Argentinians genuinely have a lot of options in the back row. Matera was probably an obvious choice off the back of his Super Rugby success with the Crusaders over my Blues. I'm still not still bitter about it. Crema is a big unit on the flank. Remember, he can cover lock, and then Juan Martin Gonzalez is another kind of tackling machine guy. So I do like that kind of balance. Like Crema's a big, aggressive guy. Matera's got some pretty silky skills, and then Juan Martin Gonzalez to get through the real grunt work. I think that's pretty tidy. Kubeli's the obvious choice at 9, but they did bring in Bertrano from the Argentinian 15 that was going to play Georgia, because Bertrano initially wasn't named, but then I think they had an injury, so he was called back up, which is maybe a little bit more familiar rather than the initial look, which looked like it was going to be Kubeli and then 2 guys who haven't really played much, 15s at international level. Sanchez is back at 10, so that means Carreras isn't in 10. He is in the squad. He's on the bench. But Sanchez, I would assume, is going to do the goal kicking. And the goal kicking has been an issue, but we'll get to the stats in a minute. De La Fuente and Orlando is the midfield. That's very familiar and experienced. Cordero, Boffelli, and Malia. The back 3, Boffelli has been doing the goal kicking last year when Carreras was playing 10, but I assume Boffelli is going to relinquish that back to Sanchez, except maybe some of the ultra long range ones. Sanchez's boot's pretty long as well. So as in terms of a starting 15, I actually think that's a pretty strong 15. It's kind of safe. I don't think he's taken any really crazy risks there. He's not blooding any really inexperienced guys. It's mostly pretty familiar. Like I mentioned, Lavanini not being there is like a little bit of a change from what we might be used to, and Juan Martin Gonzalez has kind of been in and out. But there's a little bit more experience with Augustin Crevi on the bench, and then a little bit less with Vivas and Sclavi as the two prop replacements. So the props are pretty inexperienced. Crevi is the ultimate inexperience, so that's a interesting balance as well. Paulos as your backup lock hasn't had a heck of a lot of international time with those three guys, Petty, Lavanini and Alamano, all being ahead of him, but he's been in the framework before. Isa is a nice impact Lucy to bring on. He certainly has some big ball carrying. Bertrano, Carreras and Moroni are the backs, so it's 5-3, which is kind of traditional stuff. Nothing too dramatic there. So I'm very curious, interestingly, to see how the two reserve props go. How long does he give them? And how well do they do when it actually comes to scrum time? For the Scots, as I mentioned, remember there's no Hogg, there's no Russell, there's no Chris Harris. Like a bunch of these guys have been left at home. And then Hamish Watson's had a bit of a knock, so he's not been considered for the games this week, but I think he's still going to kind of keep on with the tour. He should make an appearance at some point. Schoeman, Turner and Fagerson is the front row, and I do really like that front row, but I will admit Xander Fagerson's been given away too many penalties. That's an area of his game he needs to clean up. Gilchrist and Gray is a pretty nice locking duo, if I'm honest. I mean, you guys know I'm a big fan of Johnny Gray. The guy just makes tackle after tackle after tackle after tackle. It's quite incredible how much work that guy gets through. Gilchrist is captain in the absence of Hogg. Bradbury, Crosby, and Fagerson is the back row. So that's a little bit unfamiliar, right? Because we're used to seeing Ritchie, Watson, and Fagerson. So that's something a little bit different. Bradbury, I think I've mainly seen him at 8 rather than 6. So I'm keen to see how he goes. I know he's a pretty useful ball carrier as well. And it's a good chance for Crosby in the absence of Hamish Watson. Price and Kinghorn, 9-10. Good chance for Kinghorn in the absence of Finn Russell to get a crack at 10. Remember, Hastings didn't make the tour. He was initially named, but ended up pulling out. So, I mean, there's still question marks about Blair Kinghorn. He can, I think I mentioned it in the Scottish squad video, that he can do things that some 10s can't do in terms of his running game. But then sometimes you look at his passing game and wonder. But, I mean, it's just one of those ones where he just keeps playing 10 for his club, and he's just going to keep getting better. So this is a really, really big test for him. Up against like a very experienced Argentinian 10 and Nico Sanchez. Sam Johnson, Mark Bennett, 12-13. I think it's the first time we'll see Mark Bennett starting for quite some time. And then the wings, Duhan and Darcy, one of my favourite wing duos. And then Rory Hutchinson, interestingly, fills in at 15. And he's had a really good finish to the season for Northampton, albeit not at 15. So that's kind of an interesting one. I'll be interested to see if him and Blair kind of swap roles kind of, mid-play or mid-game. That'll be kind of one to watch. Replacements, Ashman Sutherland and Javan Sebastian. So not bad. Props to bring on, although Sebastian's pretty inexperienced. Skinner, Daj. I'm keen to see Daj get on and get some proper minutes. White, Thompson and Tuipulotu, the 3 back replacements. Likewise, I would like to see Thompson get some decent minutes rather than token minutes, but I guess it'll depend on how Kinghorn's going and whether they want to move Kinghorn to another position or just kind of straight sub him later on. We'll see. Cheika said in his press conference that he's essentially focusing on the Argentinian fundamentals. He didn't use that word, but he said they're focusing on scrum, line out, ruck and maul. So I don't think we can expect anything too flashy from this Argentinian side. It's not going to be out with the old, in with the new, like total new game plan. Like when he joined the Waratahs in their first season, he, I think, pretty much literally told the players, don't kick the ball, because the Waratahs, when he joined them, kicked a lot of ball, and he just gave them no permission to kick the ball. Maybe you can do that at club level, but you can't do that kind of thing at international level. So I don't think it's going to be drastic changes. It'll be kind of get the fundamentals right and then build. He's talked about layering. Same with the selections. He's talked about kind of, building the team in layers rather than making like, this is my first team kind of now. He's going to be seeing it as a little bit more of a long-term project, even though he doesn't have that many tests before the World Cup anyway. Stats-wise, Scotland and the Six Nations had a great line-out. Their numbers were phenomenal, but their penalties conceded were far too high. Among the highest in the competition, I think maybe the highest. And to be fair, Xander Fagerson was the second most penalised player in the competition. So that's genuinely an aspect of his game he needs to watch. Argentina last year, their numbers were genuinely quite bad. Their attack was largely kept very quiet. They didn't do a very good job of getting over the advantage line. The goal kicking was a pretty big issue, but it was Boffelli doing the kicking, and it was Carreras at 10. So I think Boffelli's goal kicking's been a bit better, seeing he's been doing a bit of it in the URC. But I do think Sanchez will be doing it in this game. And very seldom did the Argentinians have more than half the ball. Pretty rare. So they were kind of living off scraps, doing a lot of defending. So we'll see if at home they can get a bit more go for it. As I said, Scotland have had their number in recent times. But interestingly, this time it is Argentina that are the favourites. I guess because they're at home. They're 5-point favourites with the bookies and 1-point favourite with the rugby forecast algorithm. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one, folks. Nick Berry's the ref. You guys let me know your thoughts. How do you think this one is going to go? Do you think Argentina to break this run of losses against the Scots, or do you think it'll take too long for Cheika's game plan to kind of embed, to expect too much of them in their first game? You guys let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.